and welcome to episode 17 of the What Shara Made podcast. Welcome back if you're a returning viewer, thanks for sticking around, and hello if you're a new viewer. I've got just a couple of whips and an almost FO and a bunch of FOs and a little bit of sewing to show you. I might start with my whip. You will remember these from past episodes. I am making my mum a pair of socks for her birthday, which is coming up towards the end of this month. And I hand-dyed some yarn for her for these socks a couple of months ago and showed you then. She really loved the yarn. And here's the first sock, complete. Such a pretty colour, love it. And as you remember, if you watched the last episode, I inadvertently used the blueberry waffle pattern. I was just knitting away from my head and then realised I was actually knitting the blueberry waffle sock pattern. It's an awesome pattern if you are looking for a pattern to knit. It's really nice and squishy, and I'm actually looking forward to making myself a pair using this pattern as well. And I've got just a little bit done on the second sock. Shouldn't take too long to get that finished. Hope to have it finished by the end of the weekend with any luck. Looks pretty nice. Love it. So that's my first whip. It's coming along nicely, and like I said last week, I cannot believe how much I enjoyed knitting that plain old heel flap and gusset. I usually do the fish lips kiss heel and have been doing that on all my socks for over a year now, and I forgot how much I enjoy doing that type of heel, and it fits so beautifully and it looks lovely as well. So I might be seeing a few more heel flap and gussets in my future. And my second whip is actually almost an FO. I'll definitely have it finished by the end of today. It's been a bit of an adventure. The pattern is beautifully written. It's been tech edited. It's just perfect. You don't have to guess anything. Everything is included and outlined and really clear, and I've really enjoyed it. And the pattern is called Persuading Jane by The Restless Knitter, and the pattern's available on Ravelry. They're having a cowl at the moment, Restless Knitter and somebody else. Hopefully I'll put the information here on Ravelry. So I thought it'd be the perfect time to join in, and it just happened to coincide with the release of the Persuading Jane pattern, and I've been following The Restless Knitter on Instagram and Facebook, stalking it, waiting for this pattern to come out because it's so gorgeous. I've actually modified the pattern a little bit. So let's see if I can hold this up and give you a vague idea of what it looks like. A few things hanging off it. Now, this, well, you're not really getting a very good idea of what it looks like, unfortunately. So it's got 3/4 length sleeves, my preferred sleeve length, and it's a cropped cardigan, and it's got a really deep V-neck with just a small little row of buttons just under the bust, and it's this beautiful cable on the back. Oh, it's so pretty. And I dyed this yarn specifically for this cardigan last week, and I just wanted to point out, this is definitely the first time, and probably going to be the only time, I ever smash out an adult-sized cardigan in fingering weight yarn in 1 week. But there you go. I've unlocked that achievement. So I hand-dyed this yarn on my sparkle sock base last week, and I had two 100-gram hanks, and I dyed them both together in the same pot together, obviously using the same dye. They were literally, should have been identical. Well, when I say identical, of course the colour placement on the yarn is never going to be identical, even within the same skein, but the tone of the colours should have been identical. However, they weren't. But I couldn't really tell this until it was too late. Of course, when you're using hand-dyed yarn, if you want to avoid any obvious colour shifts and variations, you work with both skeins at the same time. You do 2 rows in one, 2 rows in the other, 2 rows in the other, and so on like that. And that just breaks up the colours, and you can't tell that you're using two skeins that might not be quite the same. But I was being a bit lazy and figured that I dyed them both in the same pot together. They'd have to be the same or so similar that it wouldn't matter. And I knit the entire body of the cardigan. It's knit from the bottom up all in one piece, and you separate for the fronts and the backs, and then you join them at the shoulders. And I knit the whole body with maybe, 5 grams left from the skein in one skein. And then I used the new skein to do the sleeves. However, once I got a few rows into the sleeves, I could see that the colours were quite dramatically different. The colour I'd used for the body had bits of white in it, and it was quite light. And the one I'd used for the sleeves was very solid, much more solid than the other skein, and it was a very dark, deep red. And it was really noticeable. And there was no way I was unravelling that to fix it. So last night, before I started the button band, I overdyed the whole cardigan, trying to even out the colours a bit more, and it worked a treat, thank goodness. And I'm so much happier with this colour than I was with the original colour that it was. And it's still tonal, which I was hoping for and I really love. Still got that little tonal variation, but the difference between the sleeves and the body is nowhere near as dramatic, and I really like it, and I cannot wait to wear it. I'll definitely be finished this evening, because as you can see, all I have to do is cast off this much of the button band and then just weave in the ends and sew on the buttons. The buttons I'm using are ones that I picked up at the Indigo Sheep and Wool Fair last year, 2015, and there was a stall there of women selling the most amazing collection of vintage buttons, and I went bananas and bought loads. And these ones, a couple have already been used, as you can see. And these little red squares with a little pattern on them, and they're pretty much a perfect match for this cardigan. So I'm really excited about that. Now, the major modification that I have done on this cardigan will be very obvious if you're familiar with the cardigan. The original pattern has tiny little puffed cap sleeves, and they're super cute. And I really love the style of the puffed sleeve, but I just won't get any use whatsoever out of a short-sleeved woolen cardigan. So, like I said last week, if I'm wearing a cardigan, it's because my arms are cold. That's why I wear cardigans. So a short-sleeve cardigan, no use to me. So I decided to put long sleeves on it, well, 3/4 length sleeves, and I really wanted to keep the puffed sleeve styling, and I tried about, I think, 4 different methods of doing the puff sleeve with the long sleeve rather than a puffed and a cap sleeve, and it just wasn't happening. There was just it just wasn't going to happen. I'm sure there are techniques for doing a puffed sleeve that is long in using this particular construction method, but I don't know what it is. If you can think of a pattern that has that style construction with a puff sleeve but the sleeve is long, hit me up with that information. I'd love to know, because I really want a cardigan in that style now, now that I have this. So that's the Persuading Jane. Hopefully I'll be wearing it in next week's episode, by the Restless Knitter, and it's really beautiful. The pattern's so lovely. I'm actually already thinking about the next one I make. I think it could be a good gift cardigan to make for a few of my girlfriends. So that's been a great piece to work on. Really loving it. And I'm going to do tea time right now because I really need a sip of tea. So my favourite mug. Oh god, that's good. So that's my totally awesome mug made by my clever friend Marie. So awesome. And the tea is the caramel brownie tea. I'm still addicted to it and I can't stop drinking it. Yum. Now, my next FO is a spinning FO. And I'm not sure if I've talked about this fleece previously, but it doesn't matter because here it is. So you can see, it's nice variation in colours. It's an indigo dyed fleece, so the colours are just beautiful. I love indigo. The trouble with this, though, and I think with most indigo dyed things, is that the dye came off of my hands when I was spinning it, and not just a little bit. Like, I had Smurf hands, and because I've got dry skin, especially on my right hand from my knitting calluses, yes, that's right, I knit so much, I have calluses from my knitting, the dye really collected in that gross dry skin on my hands, and I couldn't get it off scrubbing. No, wasn't going to work, so I just had to wait for the colour to just naturally disperse from my skin. So I did have Smurf hands for a few days, but I don't care because this was beautiful. You might remember in the olden days, really dark blue jeans, the colour would rub off on everything. It's probably because they were dyed with indigo, which is the traditional denim dye. But this, I don't know how well it's actually going to show up, but it's chain plied, sometimes called a Navajo ply, and I think it's only the second or third time I've used that. Whoops, hang on a sec. That plying method. I really enjoy it. I love the resulting yarn. It's quite beautiful. I don't know if that's gonna help or not. Not really, sorry. If you're not familiar with chain plying hand spun, it's where you spin your singles, and then instead of plying two singles together like the typical hand spun yarn, and my usual method of plying, you ply your singles upon themselves using a chain method. And when I say chain method, if you're familiar with crochet or even with finger knitting, the chain stitch in crochet or the finger knitting stitch is basically what you do with your singles. So as you're plying them, you are doing a really elongated version of a chain stitch in crochet. And what you'll notice with the construction of a chain stitch in crochet is that it's made up of 3 strands. You've got the 2 legs of the V, and then there's a little bump at the back. And so each chain stitch is made up of 3 strands of yarn, and the same applies with the chain ply. Each chain that you do is 3 strands of singles, and they ply together upon themselves, and the result is you end up with a 3-ply yarn, which is nice and round and fat and works quite well to give really good stitch definition. It's a particularly good ply to use if you plan on knitting cables or something with a decorative stitch that you want the stitch to really be prominent. Using a nice round yarn of 3 plies will do that for you. And this fleece is pretty special. The fleece is from a North Ronaldsay sheep. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is from a small island off the coast of Scotland, and they've been the breed of sheep has been pretty isolated, and they haven't been selectively bred to improve their fleece over hundreds of years like most sheep and most fleeces you'd be used to using or encountering. So their fleece is still pretty much the same as their primitive ancestors hundreds of years ago, which means it's a bit of an unusual fleece. It's an unusual fibre, and it's quite long and it's quite coarse and it's quite barbed. If you'd imagine looking at it under a microscope, you'd see pretty significant barbs on each strand of fibre, and that meant that it was really easy to spin. The more barbed your yarn is typically, the more it wants to be spun. It just wants to be spun. And this was a really fun, good spin, and I was able to get a really fine singles because it just really wanted to be spun. It's quite coarse, as most primitive sheep breeds are, or heirloom varieties. They tend to they're a bit more coarse because obviously as times progressed, the favoured fibre was the softer the better. And so that's what most sheep, wool-bearing sheep were. Obviously all sheep bear wool, but, sheep that bred for their wool rather than for their meat were bred to have softer fibre, like merinos, for example. But that's not always what you want. And this is one of those times. And it's not, when I do a bit of a yarn beard thing, it's really not that scratchy now, but in the roving, it was pretty coarse. Like, it had a bit of a steel wool kind of vibe about it, and I was a bit concerned that I was going to be spinning up a nice bundle of jute, but it's not. It's beautiful. It's lovely. And I think I maybe, I don't know, might knit my brother a hat out of this and put it away for his birthday. But we'll see. Maybe once I knit it up, I'll like it too much to give it to him. I don't know. The other interesting thing about North Ronaldsay sheep, I hope I'm saying that right, is that they love to eat seaweed. They live on an island, so there's, and the island isn't very big, and their favourite food is seaweed. They just stand on the shore and eat the kelp. So I don't know if that has any effect on their fleece. I'm sure it does, but I don't know the science behind diet and the resultant yarn. But I thought that was pretty cool. Little seaweed sheep. Now my next bunch of FOs are all for the same thing, but they're not the same thing. You'll have heard me talk about the Beanie Festival I'm taking part in. It happens in May, so next month. So I need to get cracking on these. And I've been knitting a stack of beanies to enter into this festival, and you sell the beanies in the festival. Oh, I'm missing one. Never mind. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 at the moment, and I can have a total of 15. I can enter 15, and I hope to enter 15. So I need to make a few more beanies this week so I can post them off. And I'll show you what I've got so far. you'll have seen some of these before. There's one that's not in this pile. I've also got it in a different pile, and that was the pink honeycomb hat that I showed you last week's episode. So imagine that I've already shown you that. And then there's this one. It's using one of my own patterns. It's a bit hard to see what that pattern is doing actually in this light, apologies. And some of my hand-dyed yarn. And that was a hand-dyeing fail that I then rescued. So that was a nice result. That was a nice result. I like that one. And that one's also got a little bit of a partner. That still needs an end woven in. And this is the sockhead hat. Well, a variation on the sockhead hat using some of that hand-dyed yarn, the same yarn as this. They look a bit different, don't they? But definitely from the same hank. And I've got this beehive hat. Pretty cool. And that is using Drops Eskimo 100% wool, and it's a big fat wool, and that's crocheted using the star stitch. And my next one is this bobbly hat, also made with the Eskimo, Drops Eskimo 100% wool, and one of my hand knit faux fur pom-poms I've talked about in previous episodes. And I've got a navy blue one, seed stitch one with the faux fur hand knit pom-pom as well, Eskimo yarn as well, same thing. And I've got this one, which is the Koru hat, quite beautiful, lovely pattern. And I showed you this last week, as was one of my FOs from last week. And the pattern is by Libby Johnson from Truly Myrtle. She's a very clever designer. You should check out her designs on Ravelry. And the yarn used in that one was just a random pure wool that I got in New Zealand and had dyed. Really cool stripe effect there. And my final one that I've got is another FO from this week, and that's this one here. Oh, I didn't notice that diagonal stripe in it. That's a bit cool. Now, this one here, no patterns, just a standard, just a plain stockinette stitch hat with a ribbed cuff, obviously. The yarn I've used here is a hand spun merino and bamboo. It was also hand dyed, obviously, and it was dyed after it was spun. That's what gives that effect there. And what is also in this, knit along with this, is some reflective tape, and you definitely cannot see it now, but when light hits it directly, it shines, just like when you have high-vis gear with reflector tape on it, and I mean, you know what I'm talking about, the reflector stuff that work people wear on their uniforms, and it's the same business, but it's just in a thread, so you can knit it along with things. So if you're out walking early in the morning or in the evening when car lights shine on you, it reflects. Hopefully I will take a photo of what this looks like, because if you use a flash and you take a photo of this, obviously the flash light shines directly on it and makes the reflective thread show up, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So hopefully I've added a photo in here somewhere of that situation so that it makes a bit more sense. So it's definitely not visible when you look at it like this, but when the light shines on it, you have a glowing head. And it's a bit of a it's a cool feature, but it's a great safety feature, and you can still look groovy and be safe at the same time. Now, my next FOs are sewing FOs. I've been a bit busy. I've had a few swaps going on, and if time allows and the swap calls for it, I like to add a project bag to my swap packages. So what I've got here, I've actually made a couple of this one. Let me see, put the base down. Oh, the light's just shining. Oh, that's better. So it's got little jars on it, which is pretty sweet. And then there's a bit of a tie-dyed denim on the bottom. And you probably can't tell, but on the top here, maybe you can, this little metallic print on a pale blue, which is a really cool fabric. I love it. And it's lined in a natural undyed fabric on the inside with the little drawstring. And my tag, of course. So that's one of the project bags that I made. And the other one is pretty cool. I love this one, and I think I might have to make myself one. I love it so much. So this is what we've got. The fabric is pretty awesome. The city, the capital city of my state, where I am from, Melbourne, is famous for its trams. So light rail goes through the city and the suburbs, surrounding suburbs. And the old number 96 is the tram that I used to catch, one of the places I've lived. And that's the 96 tram there. You'll see the little 96 on there. And the fabric down here is all the inner city and suburban tram stops. And I've made this for someone who might be missing Melbourne a little bit. So I hope that they enjoy it. And see, it's got the square base. And it's lined in the same undyed natural fabric. And it's got the strap to hold onto it and my little tag. I really like that. And that fabric is from the Melba collection by Emma Jean Jansen. And she's a pretty cool fabric designer who's obviously Australian. And I assume from Melbourne if she's got this groovy tram collection going on. There's other fabrics in the collection, but they're all pretty cool. So that's that one. And something else that I've made, this is a bit of fun to go along with these, is, let me get one that's actually functioning, a little tea wallet. And it's if you are addicted to tea, like me, I know a lot of you are, I often like to take tea bags with me if I'm going places. And you might like to take them to work or school or wherever you're going. And I often find that tea bags get a bit munched in my bag, a bit crunched up and lost, and they're hard to find, and I've got tea bags swimming around the bottom of my handbag, and you know, it's not ideal. So what I've done is made this little tea wallet. You'll see my little button there. And opened up. And there is my tea bags sitting in their little pockets. You can fit more than one tea bag in each pocket, so you can stock up. There's the little thing, and that keeps them tidy and safe and uncrunched. But it's also a bit easier to find in your bag, and it's really cute. I've made one with 6 pockets as well. You can see the same tram fabric with the tram stops on the inside. And this fabric here is actually reminiscent of the old-fashioned tram conductor's uniform, but showing my age a bit there. and I made another one, and this was the prototype, and it was a dud. So I'll probably have to keep this one myself. The actual functionality of it isn't bad, but it's not quite right. And it's a little bit wonky. I don't know if you can see there, it's a bit... but it was just a prototype, so that was good to iron out the kinks on that one. So that's something else I've been making. I think I might make a few more of those just to pop in swap packages because they're pretty cute. They weren't hard to make at all. Didn't take very long at all. So that was pretty cute. That's something I've been up to this week as well. And it's been school holidays here, so it's been rather hectic. I've had a house full of children. I've had all my nieces and nephews here for the week, and it's been pretty busy. There's only so many activities I could think of to do with them all to keep them occupied, and we had to do a few activities a few times over because they needed something to entertain them. One of our favourite things that we did was made some big paper stars, and these are made with just regular old paper bags that you use for lunch. Put your lunch in, and we decorated them and made them into stars, and hopefully I'll insert a photo here to show you our stars that we made. And I think I've covered everything now, so next week, hopefully, I will be wearing my Persuading Jane cardigan because it's so gorgeous, and I will have a finished pair of socks for my mum's birthday, and maybe I will have even started the second pair of socks for my mum's birthday that she doesn't know she's getting. It's a surprise, so don't tell her. And I think that's it. Now I'm just about to head off to my knitting group that I join on Saturday mornings, and I don't usually get a lot of knitting done, of course, so I'm too busy chatting and laughing and drinking tea. So I better head off. Thanks for joining me and spending some time with me today, and I hope to see you all again soon. Bye.